Good morning, everybody. Signing in. We'll give people just one more minute to tune in and then we'll get started. Today we're going to talk about box turtles, or the eastern box turtle to be specific. You guys are wondering. All right, let's get started. So, if you are new here and you're just tuning in to our first Q&A here, my name is Shelby and I'm the education coordinator here at the Concord Audubon McLean Center. I do lots of different things here at Audubon, but my main role here is education, which is one of our main branches of the organization. There are a few different pieces of the organization that we kind of run off of, our main mission being to support New Hampshire's environment for wildlife and for people. Through conservation of different species, through land and sanctuary management, through education, policy, marketing and development, all very fun and exciting things. So today we're going to do a little live Q&A, which we've been doing on Thursdays with some of our animals. We are kind of dwindling down to the last few animals that we have here. I think we have a couple more weeks after today before our virtual summer camp starts. And then I think at that point it will transition to Ask the Naturalist, ask our conservation staff some questions if you guys have any of those. So that's kind of how it's going to work for the next couple weeks, and then we'll switch after that. So let's dive in. So today we're going to talk about our eastern box turtle. And this guy, before I bring him out, he is a little bit, I'll say a little shy. So we will kind of bear with him as we bring him out. Right now he has his head poked out and his legs poked out, but we never know. We never know what he's going to do. So he may get scared and kind of hide in his shell. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully he doesn't do this the whole time. Let's see, if I put him here, can you guys see him still? You are hidden behind the comment, or he's hidden behind the comments on my screen. But if you guys can see him, give me a thumbs up. Before we get started, the 2nd, 5th, and 6th graders are watching again from the JDB school. Very excited to see them again, and really glad they're tuning in to watch. So, this is our eastern box turtle. There's a couple different types of box turtles that are here. I don't think we have any of them actually living in New Hampshire, but the three-toed box turtle is one of the different species. Those are the two types of box turtles that I know of, but this guy is the eastern box turtle. He is a turtle that was actually donated to New Hampshire Audubon in 1994, so he's at least 26 years old. He was somebody's pet before he came here, and then they got tired of caring for him and decided to give him to us as an ambassador animal. So he is one of my favorite turtles just because he is so kind of, I would say, shy. He kind of just sits in his shell and doesn't really do much, but he has a lot of personality otherwise. So one of the crazy things about box turtles is that they can live upwards of 100 years. So somebody had this turtle for at least, he's 26 now, so who knows how many years they had him before that. So he could be, older than 26. But, so they can live upwards of 100 years. So before you decide to get a box turtle or a turtle in any, fashion, before you think about getting one, you have to realize that they do live for a really, really, really long time. So our box turtles and things like tortoises, they can live like upwards of 100 years. So they are a really big commitment. Do they get much bigger than him? Not really. This is about the average size of a box turtle. If you're comparing males and females, the males are actually a little bit bigger than the females. So this guy is relatively small. He's probably like the size of my hand, and I have pretty small hands, but this is about the size that they'll get. Maybe a little bit bigger, but like all turtles, he's always growing, even if it's just a tiny bit. He has the scutes on the top of his shell, so his shell is called a carapace, and this is basically what protects him, and he, you know, is protected by his shell, and we'll talk about how he gets his name, the box turtle, in a minute. But so yeah, he's always growing, but not very much. So just kind of very slowly, slow growth, and not anything that you would really ever notice. But this is basically the size that they'll get. Let's see. Nicole says, Kirk, age 4, says turtles are his favorite and he'd like to know about his home he lives in. All right. We'll leave him here. There's pretty much no danger that he's going to try to run away. And I will show you guys his enclosure. Let's see. So box turtles are not aquatic turtles, which means that they're a terrestrial turtle. So they live predominantly on land. They need water, obviously, to drink. And then they also go to the bathroom in the water. So this guy has a small amount of a little water dish in his, but I'll flip you around so you can see it. So this is his enclosure. So he has just a fake little plant over here. This is his water dish. You can see. And then he has some food. He has some leftover grapes. So we can see which food is not his favorite. And then he has this little hide where he can kind of hide if he wants to. He does spend a lot of time underneath there just kind of hiding, and then some rocks over here that he can climb on if he wants to. One of the most important things about their enclosure is the lights that they have. So they have a couple different types of lights. They need ultraviolet light for to get nutrients, and then they also need some sort of heating source. So so they would naturally, you know, get that from the sun, but here in captivity, they aren't getting that. So this is his enclosure. Betsy says, do they swim at all? So he is not a aquatic turtle. Aquatic turtle means basically they're most likely going to spend most of their time in the water. And then terrestrial turtle basically being something that spends most of its time on land. So there is some controversy around whether box turtles swim or not. I was actually just doing some research because I had it under my impression that they can't swim. But I was just actually looking it up, and some people say they can, but they aren't very good at it. So that's, I think, maybe where it kind of draws the line, where they, you know, do get in the water and they aren't really great at swimming, and that's how they can end up drowning or something like that. But this guy he really only ever goes in the water to get a drink of water or to go to the bathroom, and then he's out. So it's not like he's going in and just kind of like swimming around in the water. He doesn't really have enough water in there to swim, but I don't think that he would get in if we had like a bigger tub of water for him. So let's see. Megan wants to know, what do they eat? We are thinking they're herbivores. That is a good question. So these guys are omnivores. So they are eating lots of plants. So out in the wild, they're going to eat things like mushrooms, berries, roots, flowers. They are also, while out in the wild, they can eat things like eggs. So that if they come across maybe some like salamander eggs or things like that, maybe even other turtle eggs, they might eat those things. They are actually pretty carnivorous. So they will eat lots of meat and things. They'll eat other amphibians, so smaller amphibians than them, obviously. This is a reptile, and then amphibians are things like salamanders, maybe some snakes, newts, I'm trying to think what else we have in New Hampshire. Maybe some frogs. They find small little frogs. So they are pretty carnivorous, which means that they're eating meat. Here in captivity, this guy eats lots of fruits and veggies. As you saw in his little dish, he had some grapes. So here in captivity, they're getting, you know, some things that maybe they wouldn't naturally find in the wild. So we try to give them as many natural things as possible. So lots of greens. If we can get some like dandelions, they'll eat those. They're eating lots of like spring mix. So lots of green veggies, and then a mix of some fruits as well. So fruits aren't like great for them, just as like candy and things aren't great for us. You know, that's kind of the very sugary things that normally they wouldn't naturally find in the wild, but they're getting here in captivity. So one of their favorite fruits is bananas and blueberries. Blueberries are definitely something that they may find in the wild, because as we know, blueberries like to grow around like aquatic areas. So high bush and low bush blueberry are something that maybe this box turtle would actually eat in the wild. But things like bananas, definitely not going to eat those in the wild, but it is one of their favorite things to eat. And then I'm trying to think. We have a elderberry bush actually right outside our reptile room that we, when that blooms and they produce the fruit, we actually cut them up and give them to these guys, and they love them. It's really fun to see, especially with our aquatic turtles. When they bite into them, they like burst with color. So very fun to watch them eat those things. But that's a natural fruit that they enjoy, and they like eating. Let's see, what about kiwi? Probably. I don't see why they wouldn't. I think they actually have had kiwi. Sometimes if we have like some leftover fruit salad or something at my house, I'll bring it in, and I think they have had kiwi, and I think they like it. Would they eat insects? Yes, definitely. So these guys are insect eaters. Here in captivity, for the carnivorous side of them, we feed them things like mealworms and the beetles that the mealworms turn into in that life cycle. So they're eating like small mealworms, beetles. I'm trying to think what else they eat. Sometimes if we have some extra like little pieces of mice, so like tiny pieces just like cut up from our birds, if we have some leftover stuff, we'll give it to them, because that might be something that if any of our turtles really, if they came across in the wild, let's say they came across like a mouse nest with some newly born mice, that is unfortunately something that they may eat. So here in captivity, occasionally they'll get some of those things, but we try to stick to more natural things that they would typically find in the wild. So lots of insects. Yeah, good question. Ooh, Cynthia asked, do you have to trim his nails? So this guy has some funky nails, and I'll see if I can show it to you without him tucking in his feet. If you can see right up here. So his nails are pretty long and chunky, and they kind of curl. One of the things about box turtles is that the males actually on their back hind feet, which of course he's not going to show you because he's a little scared. He may come out here a little bit. You can see they're very similar to his front feet, which he's going to show off here for you. They're just they kind of curve, and they're kind of gnarly looking. The females, theirs are actually more like skinny and long and not as like chunky as the males. And it's typically only on their backs. So, this guy, he occasionally has to get his nails trimmed. He does do a pretty good job of where he has those rocks in his enclosure. He does do a pretty good job if he likes to climb up there, so he kind of wears his nails down naturally. But if they do get really long, then we do trim them for him. But he doesn't make it easy. As you just saw, all I did was pick him up and he tucked himself in. So this guy is pretty good at hiding all of his extremities. So trimming them is kind of a two-person job because we kind of have to hold him and get the nail clippers, and but he does a pretty good job himself of kind of wearing them down himself. Let's see. Somebody says his striped chin is so cute. He is pretty cute if you think that turtles are cute. Megan says, oh, our students are asking, we were wondering what their predators are and if they enjoy listening to music. Okay, so let's see. Their predators, things that like to eat turtles, include things like fisher, raccoon, otters, maybe even bobcats. So kind of our medium-sized mammals or our smaller mammals, they are predators, the carnivorous ones at least. They're predators of turtles. They will try to eat these guys. But as we know, their shell is super hard and can actually protect them. And this guy actually gets his name, the box turtle, because on his underside, you can see he has this kind of crease here, and that is actually a hinge in his shell, so he can actually close himself up entirely. Let's see if I can get him to do it. I don't want to scare him because he's being so awesome. But he can actually move that piece back and forth, so he can shut it really tightly. So his shell basically acts as a defense mechanism for him, or a protector, kind of like his armor. And their shells are insanely strong. Their shells actually are their spine or their backbone. So here I have a giant alligator snapping turtle shell. So not a species that we have here in New Hampshire specifically, but we do have snapping turtles. These guys are kind of native to places like Florida. You can see their like spikes they have that make them look like kind of an alligator. But their shells are really, really, really thick. And you can hear, I don't want to knock on his because he probably wouldn't love that. But they're really thick and protective, and you can see here that if this was attached to a turtle, this would be where their vertebrae are. So they're connected to their shell. So their shell is basically their forever armor because they can't come out of their shell or anything like that. And as far as listening to music, I don't know. I don't know if they like enjoy listening to music. I do, like when I'm in here feeding and taking care of everyone, I do have music playing all the time. I don't know if they've ever shown interest in it or showed disinterest in it, but they do listen to music pretty much every day. So who knows? Maybe. What else was I going to tell you? So in New Hampshire, they are an endangered species. So there have been sightings reported in New Hampshire, but there are no like verified populations in the state. And I do have this picture here, which I wanted to show you. So I have a map of the map of New Hampshire. And the darker circles here are where they're currently, and then the lighter circles or lighter spots are historically where they have been found. So you can see here that they haven't really been found many places. So kind of down here, up on the seacoast, maybe a little bit up. What is that? That's Conway. So very spotty population range there, and no known like full populations of box turtles in New Hampshire. Let's see. Do the rings on their shells indicate age? I don't believe so. Not that I know of, at least. Are you talking like, what are we talking? The tops of their shells, like the scoots here? Because they each have, they should have 13 of them on the top. And then maybe, oh, are you talking about maybe these ones around the edge? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, so he has 24. And we know that he's at least 26. So I'm going to say maybe not. There aren't many things that indicate age on a turtle that I know of. Oh, one of the really cool things about this guy, hi, how did I forget to mention this? So you can see that he has red eyes, and male box turtles, or the boy box turtles, have red eyes, and then the females have brown eyes. So that is one way to kind of tell the difference between the males and the females as well. I saw a big one in Westmoreland a few years ago. Sweet, that's awesome. It's always fun to see these guys out in the wild, or really any turtle out in the wild. Yesterday I stopped to help paint a turtle across the road, so that's always fun to see. How many eggs are in a clutch and what percentage make it to adult? That's a good question. I'm pretty sure that these guys lay lots of eggs. So when we compare something like, let's say a bobcat, comparing a bobcat to a turtle, these guys there's a couple different patterns of reproduction. So things like our mammals, they're going to lay something that is live. They're not going to lay an egg. They're going to have a live birth, and they're typically only going to have like 2 or 3. So in terms of our bobcats, they're going to have what is a bobcat baby called? A cub? No, that's a bear. We'll just call them babies for now. So they're typically going to have 2 or 3 babies. And then in things like our turtles, they're going to lay typically like, let's say 30 eggs. And the way our mammal is going to work is it's going to put all of its energy into taking care of those 2 or 3 babies. And it's going to make sure they know how to hunt. It's going to make sure that it's protected at all times. It's going to ensure that they are going to survive as best as they can. Obviously, there are some natural things that might happen, unfortunately, but they're going to basically put all of their energy into making sure that those 2 or 3 babies survive, go on to live, and hopefully reproduce with another bird, hopefully another bobcat. And then things like our turtles. So let's say,
Hey, Shelby.
Hi.
Not to scare you. Do you, at some point, I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's okay.
If you can find just some sort of broom, and it doesn't have to be beautiful,
Sure.
so we can clean up after ourselves.
Yeah, of course. I'll bring one out to you.
Just stick it out the door.
Sure.
Thanks a bunch.
Yeah, you're welcome. So things like our box turtles. Let's say our box turtle lays like 30 eggs. And they're going to kind of lay them, and they're going to hatch. And then this turtle kind of is going to just let the baby turtles, just run off. And they're going to have to kind of fend for themselves. There are predators and things that are going to eat them, unfortunately, as we kind of talked about. And they're not going to really take care of them. They're not like a maternalistic creature. So they're going to just kind of put their whole energy into laying a lot of eggs and hoping that some of them survive. So you can see the difference between mammals, where they put all of their energy into the 2 or 3 that they, the smaller amount, and then our turtles are going to have more eggs and put less energy into taking care of them, but put more of their energy into having more, and then just kind of going from there and hoping that they survive. So I'm not 100% sure about what percentage make it to adult, but I would say maybe like 25%. I don't think it's a huge amount, because since they aren't actually, taking care of them and making sure that they're surviving and thriving, that some of them maybe won't survive. Megan says, is that turtle full grown, or how big do they get? Yes, so this is a full grown box turtle. He is about the size of my hand, and I have pretty small hands. But this is about the size that they'll get. The males, like I said, typically tend to be a little bit bigger than the females. And they, this is about the size that they'll get. They don't get much bigger than this. Ooh, does that beak ever get overgrown? Yes. So one of the cool things about box turtles is that they have kind of a beak like a bird. You can see that it's curved and kind of hooked, shaped like our raptors even. And that is pretty sharp, so they actually use that beak to kind of rip things and make sure that they can, get small pieces of food. And it does overgrow. You can see that he has a pretty severe overbite, which is typical of box turtles because they have that, hooked shaped beak of theirs. But sometimes it does overgrow to the point where it has to be trimmed a little bit. Like we do with our birds, we use kind of a Dremel and kind of just file it down and make sure that we're keeping that natural shape so they can keep, pulling food apart and things. But sometimes they do need some assistance. But this guy, like I said, does pretty good at wearing his own beak down and his nails down. Good question. Let's see. How about some ways that you can help turtles? Like I kind of just gave you a hint on one that I did today, or yesterday. So if you're ever, let's say, driving down the road and you see a turtle in the middle of the road and nobody's stopping to help it, one of the things you can do is you can pull over and actually help it to the other side. And what you want to do is you want to go, let's say that this turtle was walking this way across the road, and he was heading from this side to this side. You want to pick him up and move him across the way he was going. So we don't want to ever move him back because they're just going to end up back in the road. So we want to move them kind of the direction that they're going. And so that we can ensure, he's moving off our screen here, that they're getting off the road and they're not going to kind of go back and forth. One other way you can help them is you can help support the laws and programs to protect them. So New Hampshire Fish and Game does a lot of work with our turtles. We have some biologists who work with our turtles here at New Hampshire Audubon. Lots of ways that you can support them. If you're ever interested, you can look it up on Fish and Game's website or our website. But there's lots of things that you can do help to protect them. And one of the biggest things here is to not take turtles from the wild. So I know that it's kind of enticing. Maybe you find a baby turtle out in the wild and you want to help it and you want to take it home and keep it as a pet. It's important that we keep them, in the wild. They are wild animals. We want to keep them there, and we want to help them survive in the wild. And one of the things that a lot of people don't think about typically is that they're going to take it from the wild. They're going to maybe have it for a few years and decide, okay, I don't really, want this turtle anymore. I'm just going to put it back out in this pond I have in my backyard. So turtles actually have a pretty severe homing sense to them. So what that means is basically if you take a turtle from, let's say, a pond in Concord, and you take it to your home in Stratford, and then you decide the pond behind your house is a great place for this turtle to live now that, you don't want it anymore. But the thing is, this turtle is going to spend basically its entire life now back out in the wild trying to get back home. So trying to travel from Stratford to Concord to find out basically where it came from. So they have a really strong homing sensation or homing, sense to them, where they're going to spend most of their life basically trying to figure out where they came from. So it's important that if you do take a turtle from the wild, which you shouldn't, but if you do, to remember where you took it from, so that you can either return it back there. But if you take it from the wild and you have it as a pet for quite a while, it's really not going to remember how to be a wild turtle. So, you should contact maybe somebody about taking it instead of just putting it back in the wild, because it's likely that it maybe won't survive in the wild now that you've had it in your house and you've been feeding it delicious fruits and veggies and things. And worms and all kinds of things. So this guy is totally on the move right now. Let's see. Can you please hold him up again so we can see his claws? Sure. So this guy, you can see they're not really sharp. They're actually really stumpy and I don't even know the word to describe it. They're I don't know. They're just kind of, they're not soft, but they're not super hard. And then let's see if we can get this little foot out here. Oh, we'll spin around. This one's out. So you can see how long these ones are in the back. And that is just kind of, they use them to dig in the dirt. So these guys, as you can see, they don't have the webbed feet that you think of when you think of a turtle, like a aquatic turtle. So these guys' feet are good for digging and things. Did you say this one was donated or was it injured? This one was donated to New Hampshire Audubon in 1994. He was somebody's pet, and then they decided that they just didn't want him anymore. So he lives here with us. Why is he considered a turtle and not a tortoise? So I think the tortoises are their own type of turtle. So it's kind of like comparing the wood turtle to the box turtle. They're different species. Tortoises typically tend to be really big. Box turtles are more of a smaller species. Tortoises tend to live in warmer places. So if you think about like the Galapagos tortoise, the giant tortoises that they have over there, and this guy is much smaller and can live in, you know, less warm climates. I have heard the road crossing turtles are males looking for territory. True or not? I should have looked at the turtle yesterday that I picked up, but I didn't. I don't know if that's true. I think it just could be, you know, the turtle traveled over here. Like in the case of the turtle I saw yesterday, it was heading towards a body of water. It's kind of like a little swampy area. Could just be that it kind of moved back and forth and was heading back to the pond. But that doesn't mean that that is not true. You could be very right. Let's see. Do they hibernate? So, the aquatic turtles, yes, they do hibernate, as well as these guys. If you think about in the wild, what these guys would typically do, when it's really cold out, they're going to, let's see, where was I going with that? Sorry, just lost my train of thought. So they're cold-blooded, which means that their body takes on whatever temperature it is around them. So why we have the heat lamps and the UV lights in their enclosures, because those were naturally things they would get from the sun, and they could stay warm in the summertime. But then in the wintertime, when it gets really cold, these guys are kind of forced into hibernation. So not something that maybe they want to do, or they, you know, think, okay, I have to do this. It just happens because they are cold-blooded animals and they take on whatever temperature it is outside. So as it starts to get colder, their body kind of starts to slow down, and they start to go into that hibernation state. These guys would typically, I believe, dig themselves kind of down in the soil and things and hide themselves, so that they're kind of protected from other predators and things. Our aquatic turtles are going to dig themselves down in the mud, in the water, and then when it freezes over, they're going to kind of be stuck under there, but they can hold their breath for a really, really, really long time. So it's kind of impressive. And then in the summertime or the spring, when things start to warm back up, these guys are kind of going to warm back up and come back to life, per se. Where do they lay their eggs? So this guy, being a terrestrial turtle, is going to lay its eggs in the forest. So they do kind of hang out near bodies of water, maybe around let's say there's a pond, maybe around the pond in the forest, maybe there's a field. These guys are going to lay their eggs typically kind of around the pond or in the forest. Good question. What else do you guys want to know? I'm trying to think of anything. He is like very lively right now. This is probably like the most lively I've ever seen in the time that I've worked here, which is fun. If you don't have any other questions, I'm going to wrap it up for the day. We can put this guy back in his enclosure where he can continue his day. Maybe go eat his grapes. Hopefully eat his grapes. Okay, here we go. We have a couple questions. How long before the eggs hatch? I believe the incubation period of a turtle egg is somewhere between 15 to 20 days. So it's really not that long. And then they'll hatch, and that's when the turtles will kind of be out on their own. How do you know if a turtle is healthy? What do we look for? So one of the things to look for in a turtle is their shell. Their shell is a really good indicator of whether or not that this turtle is healthy or not. So we had a turtle that came to us it's called shell rot, and it basically is if the water isn't good, if they aren't eating good nutrients and things. So we want to make sure that they're eating good nutritional things that they would be eating in the wild, lots of greens, lots of nutritional things for them. So not a lot of sugars, not a lot of like meats and things, kind of a combination of them all. Their shell should look kind of in one piece. There shouldn't be any like weird rotting spots on it. Any discoloration is kind of a way to tell that maybe their shell isn't in the best condition. Any like flaking is not good. So this is he has a really nice shell. He eats all his fruits and veggies and things. So his shell is pretty perfect. The coloration is normal of a box turtle. The underside, the same thing. There's no flaking. It's really just quite flat and nice and smooth. One more question. Do they ever have spiky shells? So there are some turtles that do have spiky shells. So if I show you guys this one again. So this is our snapping turtle. The alligator snapping turtle, to be specific. And you can see the spikes here. They're not like super sharp or anything, but they are spiky. And then along the bottom here, they're spiky. And this would be similar to a snapping turtle that we would have here in New Hampshire. They do have spikes on the top of their shell. And those are just kind of to protect them from predators and things. Peeing all over my desk. Awesome. Let's see. Saw one turtle shell cracked, repaired by fiberglass on a show. That's really cool. I have seen lots of ways of repairing turtle shells. So if you ever find a turtle, let's say it was hit by a car or something and it looked like maybe the turtle could survive, you could take it to a rehabber and they could work on kind of putting their shell back together. And there's lots of different ways that they do that. Can you feel you touching the top of his shell? Yes. Yeah. So there are lots of nerves in the shell, and he can definitely feel me touching the top of his shell. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I love all the good questions. Next week, I believe we are featuring the corn snake. So we'll see the corn snake next week. If you don't like snakes, don't tune into that one. But if you do, definitely come and check it out. And I hope you guys have an awesome day. It is so nice outside. I'm going to try to get out there as soon as I can. So tune in next week. If you feel like donating, feel free to go to our website and support us. And thank you guys so much for watching. And I hope you guys have an awesome day.